One
Nah.
of the things I did want to talk about, and is this idea. Okay, so like in the 1970s, radio astronomers had found some trans-Neptunian object. So this object beyond Neptune that was perturbing orbits, and they say that they imaged something out there and it was dark, right? So this started to hatch
Hmm.
the idea of like a Planet 10, Planet X. Of course, over the years, there's been so many people that have, uh, they've come out with this. Oh, it's here, it's in front of the sun. I'm taking pictures of it now because if it was that close, it'd be causing too much chaos. But it's like I'm one of those who's a proponent of it because, like, not only did they find something that was trans-Neptunian in the 70s, this was the beginning of like the climate change issues, right? And I'm not just talking about the Soviet-based, propaganda that we get about carbon and this and that, needing some kind of footprint control, the nonsense. But there is, in fact, climate change happening in the sense that there are now more than ever. There have been over um, I can't remember. There's been hundreds of earthquakes in the last month that are like 5 and above. A volcano had recently erupted over after hundreds of years, right? All this
Hmm.
activity going around, and in the outer solar system, like I think that the farthest planets are showing signs of being like brighter and meaning that they're hotter. Um, you know, there's other things that are happening with the solar system, not just us. So I look into other histories, right? And to say that there is perhaps an elliptical orbit based, secondary or a binary or trinary system to our own is not as far fetched as it may seem. You know, because we've like studied space, the visible universe, right? And we have discovered a trend that a lot of them, and I mean a lot of a whole bunch of them. I don't know if I'd go as to say that there's more often than not a binary or a trinary system that are orbiting with each other. That we are kind of in the lesser of if it's that we only have one solar system, that we're kind of in the lesser of the two options. But the ancients and the earliest writings, the Akkadian cuneiform Sumerian tablets, talk about the Anunnaki, the one, or that's the Babylonian, the Sumerians, the Anunna, from the heavens they came, or the most important royal seed. You know, they're talking about coming from this planet, this red-hued volcanic planet called Nibiru, the planet of the crossing, right? And there's in the Hopi, the native Hopi tribes, they talk. There's some legends and other legends that talk about first in the skies comes the blue kachina of warning, and then the red kachina of cleansing. That before like there's always the cycle of destruction and renewal, right? There's been
Hmm.
more talks of Planet X recently from more academic circles, but it's something I think we should really consider because, like I said, we did happen to find something. Something was perturbing orbits in the 70s, trans-Neptunian. Fast forward to today, the climate change is fucking insane, right? We're seeing more and more interstellar objects. All of these near misses with asteroids. Um, it's just like I've come to this understanding, that like the Book of Revelation can be interpreted as a blueprint for like when this system comes in because it's said to come in like people vary depending on interpretation and translation. They say it comes in every 3,600 years. And what it's basically seeming like is that it's a dual system to our own, which would make us more common based on what we have seen out there. Because, like I said, from what I understand, that there's a lot. There, I'm not saying because I don't know with 100% certainty if it's most, but it seems to be that there's a lot more than not a dual system or a trinary system, right? And when we have the ancients talking
Hmm.
about it, Ragnarok, so many of these eshkatons, this end times beliefs around the world has this destruction of the world and renewal. Okay, every time that this thing has come in, it's like in the most ancient texts, the gods, the first gods we have in our, because Sumeria is said to be our oldest civilization, like known civilization with history. Um, and they're talking about, okay, so the council of gods doesn't warn their creation of man and their offspring and the things that are here of the impending flyby of the and cataclysm of their planet. Thus is what really triggers the original flood myth that it's like universal, right? And they have found, like,
Right.
the idea is that it caused a pole shift and a mass freezing event, which would have caused the ice age. Now I get that this isn't academia, but then when you consider, like, they found mammoths with buttercups flash. They're eating the buttercups, right? The mammoths, and they're flash frozen, as if
Mm-hmm.
it's still fresh in their mouths. Like these animals that were found flash frozen, right? As if something drastically changed in temperature and caused them to freeze, like flash frozen, right? You know, it's just like I think that, like I said, I'm not a doomsdayer. I'm not one of those who's fear porning about it, but I do think that it could potentially be in our lifetime, if not our our grandchildren or so forth, something within this time period. Because I'm not a doomsdayer. I'm not going to say it's next week, but something's coming. I really do believe that. Like I said, it's just it makes more sense that we're like more common areas of space that we see, where there's a binary or a trinary system. It appears to be backed in our most ancient texts at the very least. Some people could say, well, why can't we see it? Well, when you combine the fact that it's talking about these, the alien gods, I mean, they could have a Dyson sphere over that, big old sphere over their star to hide, like it wouldn't, not to say hide it, but to harvest its energy. I'm just spitballing, but it's something I wanted to bring up because it's like, the closer it comes, and something similar is always in all of our myths, something revolving around this type of shit. We're getting
Mm-hmm.
more earthquakes, more crazy ass weather. Some advocate that it's artificially being engineered. Like I was saying, the traditional climate change narrative of like, oh, we're putting too much pollution and carbon into the, we breathe carbon, we are carbon. We're not going to eliminate carbon without eliminating ourselves. And furthermore, that doctrine goes back to the Soviet Union. That's straight up communist bullshit. Like, I'm just saying, and they fudge the numbers with that shit, but that doesn't change the fact that there is some severe climate change issues, but not just on our planet, but on other planets in the solar system. And it's just been getting worse and worse. And I do believe that I'm not saying it's even in our solar system, you feel me? But it's something out there that's getting closer that's fucking us up. Because it don't have to be like right next door to Earth for it to cause calamity. You see what I'm saying? Something like a big planet or a system or something being like that. It wouldn't necessarily have to be that close to really affect us. And it could be a lot closer than they're telling us. If it because it's starting to be taken seriously again. Like I said, this idea of a Planet X or Planet 10 hypothesis, because did you see how they recently did find a planetoid outside past Neptune?
No, I didn't.
Not to tangent off, but yeah, they had recently found a planetoid out just outside Neptune. So, but yeah, I am one of those who sees like corroborating evidence, that there appears to be something trans-Neptunian just getting closer, and the old texts to the different end times mythoses, they all follow the same pattern with the same eschatological disasters. Then it ends with the renewal, the cleansing done by the red star. Like it's, then of course, the Nibiru is described as Planet of the Crossing is described as a red-hued volcanic planet. So that they say that it has heat from the inside. But yeah, I wanted to bring that up because The climate change is becoming a real fucking problem. Like it's hot as fuck anymore. It's crazy ass fucking flooding.
Oh yeah.
You know, earthquakes. Volcanoes starting to erupt. Weird migration patterns with animals. It's just I think it has to do with the potentially coming in system that I want to reinstate that restate that I'm not one of those fear porn advocates. It could be decades away, but I do believe that's what's causing this shit.
It wouldn't surprise me.
Well, yeah, like I said, the gatekeepers in academia. I mean, they'll say this and that about it, and they'll boo-hoo the theory, but it's like you're also telling us that the binary and trinary systems are way more common, but we just happen to be another anomaly. Like I said, there's been so many near misses nowadays. You probably maybe you've seen it. Like and this was just a few days ago. They said there was a near miss. I do believe. So, and eventually, of course, in all these end times myths, there's the pelting of rocks, there's the falling, there's the wormwood of the Bible. The red dragon, it just seems like it's talking about the same stuff. Ragnarok of the Norse, it's talking about the destruction and renewal that happens with these cycles. But yeah, I wanted to bring that theory in because I just, it's something that's been on my mind the more I see the climate issues. So
Yeah, no, I get it.
yeah, like a lot of people just shit on the theory, and it doesn't help that there's been all these these goofy motherfucking conspiracy theories like low tier bait whack jobs who will say like, look, there's something in front of the sun, that's Nibiru. No, because if it was that close, the fucking planet would probably be destroyed. You know what I'm saying? But I do think that the trans-Neptunian object that they found in the 70s is getting fucking closer. So